this week's episode of My Hero Academia is the type of episode that I'd want to show someone who claimed that this series is just a generic shonen, because it doesn't use really animation or fights or any of the classic kind of cliche aspects that a lot of people try to view series such as this on a surface level at. Because this episode was incredible, and the reason it was incredible was because the character motivations were so well written. The idea that this was just a very simple test between former sidekick to All Might Night Eye, who really seems bound and bent to push away Deku because someone like Togata would be who he believes should have inherited this amazing ability. You have a fanboy of the ultimate status who really has a grudge out for our character, and an ability that can see the future for like an hour straight says, hey, if you steal this stamp, I'll let you into the business. Like, that entire sequence was so gripping because the character dynamic there, it had you connected, because not only did you want your main character to be able to join this organization because he wants that work study, he wants to work with someone closely to his idol, his mentor, but also you want to prove that he isn't some nobody. He does deserve it, and what All Might says about him is the truth. But at the same time, you start questioning, well, if someone who has this much of a connection, a passion for someone he used to work with, he's the ultimate fanboy, limited edition merchandise for as far as the eye can see, and he's very much pushing back against it, there has to be a reason, at least in his mind, that he very much doesn't want to have him a part of his group. I mean, there's clearly some distance between him and All Might, as he's mentioned how he doesn't want to talk to him, but it doesn't really seem like there's a hatred there, but maybe some form of guilt or something to that matter. Like, this episode, it really highlights why My Hero Academia is so much more than just some generic shonen of the season. The character writing is incredibly tight. This episode made me laugh, this episode had me sweating at times. It really was just an exceptionally strong episode, and definitely my favorite of the new season so far. I just love how it immediately is thrown into Deku's face like, hey, you didn't even deserve this power. There was another one, I'm working with him, who was so much better. I don't get it. And he was just trying to rile him up to really push him to his absolute breaking limit, but as he says, he was always going to accept him, but at the same time, he wanted to only accept him to prove why he isn't worthy of this power. Like, it has to be the ultimate salt rubbing into your wounds imaginable, that, you know, you literally are breaking yourself, like, physically and mentally in this situation. You're dodging all the All Might merchandise to make sure, you know, as you're doing your crazy jumping moves, that you're trying to find a way to surpass this future vision, and with every step of the way, you're getting progressively more pissed off and annoyed, but also you're probably hurting yourself quite a bit because you're going to have to bend and break your body in a certain way because you have to actually take into consideration everything around you that is All Might faced. It was just so incredible because I had a lot of feelings mixed up into one, because this character, we just get introduced to him. I think he's cool. I think his ability's amazing. I like his character design, and his personality is something that I actually do respect, even though he was saying things that were quite rude and, you know, at times even offensive for Deku. Like, I felt like, well, this is a pro hero. He was someone who worked alongside All Might. Maybe he isn't in the right, but he clearly has his ideals, so there's got to be a reason at least for him thinking this way. But I was like Deku. I was getting bummed out. I was getting pissed off. Like, there was a lot of fluctuation with my emotions, and it kind of felt like we were Deku, but we didn't want to give up. We wanted to keep seeing the scene play out, and I wasn't sure the direction they wanted to go, whether they were going to actually let him take the stamp or have him fail. And I am glad they let him fail, because this ability seemed ridiculous. It honestly felt like if he could find a way to overcome this ability in a matter of 3 minutes, I mean, how did he defeat villains for all this time, right? So it's nice that he did fail, and it was more to just see, I mean, if you can't control your emotions in this situation, like, how am I going to send you into the real world? So the test actually made sense, but to actually see him commit to, I don't believe you deserve this power, was something that kind of highlights why this isn't your run-of-the-mill shonen. Because a lot of times, characters with the amazing ability, who is kind of based around the top hero in the day, like, most people would just naturally like him. It's not common for someone like Night Eye to say, hey, I'm only letting you tag along with me because I'm going to prove you were the wrong man for the job. Like, that is the ultimate sass and just rude comment imaginable, but at the very least, Deku does have his workshop kind of contract signed up. So on one hand, it's good, but on the other hand, you're like, this is going to be complex. Even more so as if you watch after the credits, Deku's already meeting someone who he probably doesn't want to meet alone, so it's like, oh shit. My Hero Academia this season is going to be insane. You can definitely tell it's going to have the same level of humor, the same level of just normal banter that we've come to expect with these characters when they're not in a life or death situation, but we can also clearly tell this shit's gonna get dark at times, and I'm very excited for that. I always mention it, but every season of My Hero Academia seemingly is getting progressively better for me. It's something about the characters in this show that is so interesting. With last week, it was really highlighted on the villain side, and I loved the first half of last week's episode. It really made you feel so connected to those villains. Even though they were horrible, you were really interested in following their story. And with this week, it was really a Deku-focused episode, and he's not some character you want to see fail or just see him thrown to the side. Like, you want him to be someone similar to All Might, but very different, because you don't want him to just be a copy, right? The whole idea of All Might is how he's the symbol of peace, but he didn't get to where he was by just copying. He made an identity. He made a persona that people believed in for all these years. And it's up to Deku to build his own, and I don't know the full direction they'll go, if it'll be multiple symbols of peace or things like that, but still, like, Deku's not some character who you brush aside and say, okay, let's look at Tokiomi. Like, there's all these other great characters, but you also really want to see Deku excel, and I'm really happy that just, not only is the wounds lasting in this series, like when characters get very broken, they absolutely hurt for a long period of time, but it is also just the mental scars that can continue to last throughout the arcs. Like, there's so many messed up things that we've experienced, from the hero killer to just the battles in last season. Like, it's nice that even when you're not in like a villain versus hero format, you can have hero versus hero, but there can be some words, some shade that will be thrown your way that's going to stick with you. Imagining that now you have to think, All Might was going to put this person who is going to have this ability. Was I in the wrong? Should I have not accepted this? I was just some nobody. This is clearly an amazing person. You got Night Eye saying it. Like, this is something that clearly is going to haunt Deku, and something that he's really going to have to take into consideration and prove not only to himself, but those around him that he is the man for the job. Like, obviously All Might and himself, they believe, like, this is the man for the job, but even though All Might's opinion's not going to change, Deku's easily could, because of someone who was very close to him now saying you weren't the right man for the job. That's what I really love about My Hero Academia, is that no matter what character we really focus on, whether it be on the protagonist or even the antagonist side, like, there's always something interesting to tell, and whether you're rooting for the characters you're focusing on or even against them, the stories are still compelling. And when it really gets into the animation, which I especially loved how they actually detailed a very hard to watch scene where Deku was moving so fast, like, it was hard to keep up with what he was doing. And I especially like the, like, just little details, like they'd add footprints on the walls or the ceilings. You wouldn't see his body, but you would see that he clearly moved to that direction, and just watching the slow-mo and how they would really mess with his mind, and even the viewer's mind, being like, this man is a troll. Like, clearly he's a jokester, as seen with last week and also this week with some of his lines, but he also is someone you just don't want to piss off. He almost felt to me like someone who, on one hand, clearly was a noble person, but on the other hand, you wonder if he had a sick perversion, because this man clearly has a way of getting under people's skin, and that's what I really like. He's someone he makes you feel a lot of things. You know, you're pissed off, you're annoyed, but then you're also like, well, maybe he has a reason for saying what he's saying there, and the ability is just ridiculous. Looking into someone's eyes, touching their face, and now you can see an hour into the future of every movement. Like, that's actually pretty ridiculous, but every power in this series, even as strong as it is, there's usually a way to counter it. I'm just really happy that Deku didn't counter it in this situation, because at that point I wouldn't be as impressed with his ability, because if Deku could do it in the matter of 3 minutes, then I'm like, oh shit. I mean, anyone can basically predict it. Like, Deku's cool. He is able to think outside the box, but he is still a very small person in the world of heroes. And there's going to be a lot more intelligent and, more experienced villains than Deku, so it's nice that Deku wasn't able to just counter it with throwing some books in the air and things like that. I mean, this was just a adrenaline rush. It really made me feel a wave of emotions where I don't actually know what I can compare it to, because this was a character who, at face value, I was excited to see and was excited to explore, but then he was saying these things and I'm like, Deku, I mean, he's not perfect, and maybe there are other characters who already had good abilities, or you kind of already believed in them. Maybe you're just mad because you were already training this one guy and he didn't get the ability. So, like, I was like, okay, maybe he has his reasons, maybe he's in the wrong, maybe he's in the right, but hey, this is the character who got the ability. Why don't you give him at least a shot before making your judgment? And then he just kept trying to get under your skin, and I mean, it's revealed that he was purposely trying to do it, but at the same time, he believed what he was saying. It's like, it was just such a variety of emotions, and that's kind of why I really like the writing in My Hero Academia, is it's not like you get excited just because it's cool fights, or it's cool basic bitch level personalities. The personalities are usually fun at surface level, but it's when you really start watching them, explore them arc by arc, it's like, wow, that's actually exceptionally well done. And generally, they grow at some point in time to be someone you're actually really interested in on a written level, not just a surface level, which a lot of shonens don't get right, but My Hero Academia certainly does. I especially like just that little scene afterwards where he's approved. You know, all the characters are kind of being like, oh shit, like, you got the dream job here, not knowing exactly what he went through and what he's going to have to continue to go through while he gets these dagger eyes from his new boss. And then you get characters in the background, you know, being like, oh man, we keep falling behind Deku, and then other characters getting really solid partnerships there from like number 3 heroes. We got Hawks, and just, it's nice to see that they're laying the foundation early on to just the different partnerships and where different characters are going to go, how they all have their own stories. But of course, I think most people, whether it probably read the manga or are anime originals like myself, the thing we're most excited for is definitely that after the credits scene and seeing can Deku excel past what Night Eye sees him as, and holy shit, what's going to happen with that confrontation? What did everyone think of this episode of My Hero Academia? Did you enjoy it as much as myself? Did you find that whole like bouncing around a room and just the intimidation scene incredibly gripping? Because I definitely did. Let me know. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy, and also hit that subscribe button if you have any news. Until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.